This is the new Prusa Core 1 Plus, and I think there's hardly any 3D printer that's as hard to evaluate as this one. This is a mid-size 3D printer in the upper price segment, and I put it through extreme testing today. We're not only printing really exciting materials like polycarbonate, but we're also looking at the weaknesses and strengths of this printer. And in the end, we will see how this printer holds up against Bambolab and who should buy this one. I would say let's start with the assembly. The printer comes in this large box, and the first thing we can pull out is a pack of Haribo. We also get this manual, which is pretty helpful for beginners, and a certificate confirming that the printer is in perfect condition. After that, I lifted the printer onto my desk. You can now stick these rubber feet on the bottom. I made a bit of a mess of that, so let's just skip that step, but it's really no big deal. Next, we screw on the display and click it into place very easily. Before you think that looks pretty dirty, don't worry, it's just a film. When you peel it off though, unfortunately some small residue sticks to certain spots. As a print plate we get one with a smooth surface, which is fine. I personally prefer the textured ones, but those can easily be bought separately. Anyway, we can then start the printer and click through the menu. The printer runs a few self-tests and then we're ready to start printing. My first print was this little keychain, and that worked really well. On the included USB stick there's also this robot llama. Of course I had to print that right away. Especially in this particle color filament, it looks amazing. Now we need to quickly talk about the specs. We have a Core XY printer here, meaning significantly faster movements than with regular Bedslinger 3D printers. The build volume is 25 by 22 by 27 centimeters. Solid for most projects, but nothing massive. Prusa advertises high speed here, but as always, we will look at realistic speeds at the moment, because the printer could reach this speed, but in normal prints you will usually use this speed. I hope you know what I mean. With the Prusa Core 1 Plus, we can print virtually all common materials: PLA, PETG, ABS, ASA, polycarbonate, nylon, TPU and more. So everything important, including functional parts. The nozzle reaches 290 degrees, which is good, but just for comparison, the Creality K2 Pro at 700 euros reaches 300 degrees. But we will get deeper into that topic later. Printing is done via Prusa slicer, which delivers really stable profiles. Price-wise, we're looking at around 1,349 for the assembled version and 1,049 for the build kit, so we're in the premium range. Let's take a look at design and build quality. The printer is extremely solid and high quality. I was working alongside the Elegoo Centauri Carbon 2 at the same time, so this is a really big difference. This is very personal, but for me the printer just feels right. The Prusa Core 1 Plus doesn't feel modern or flashy. And that's not a bad thing. It's just extremely hard to convey in a video if you haven't used the printer yourself. For example, I've worked a lot with the Creality K2 Pro, and this printer looks better from the outside, but I personally prefer the Prusa printer. The printer is primarily optimized for longevity. Prusa has proven many times, first of all, that their printers last a very long time, and second, that you will always get upgrade kits. For example, if you bought a MK3S a few years ago, you could upgrade it to a MK4 and now to a Prusa Core 1. That's truly unique in this industry, and I love this feature. The software side gets interesting too. For the slicer, Prusa sticks with Prusa slicer as usual, and that remains one of the biggest advantages of that system. The print profiles are extremely well tuned. There's a lot of options, but with minimal frustration in daily use. I have to say, I never really changed any settings. I just hit slice and print. There's also the security aspect. You can use the printer completely offline or with LAN. Especially for print farms, this is really interesting because it reduces the risk of the Chinese stealing your files. If you want to be 100% safe. There's also the Prusa Core 1L Critical Infrastructure Edition. That's built for things like the military or big companies that don't want their files to be hacked. But coming back to the regular consumer, there's Prusa Connect, where you comfortably can upload all your files, manage the printer, start prints and so on. A camera currently has to be purchased for 44 euros. I think that's very expensive. I then updated the firmware, I downloaded it from the internet and put it on the USB stick and then hit flash. But I think you can upgrade the firmware directly from Prusa Connect. Those were all the more theoretical aspects. But what I care most about in the end, it's print quality. And don't worry, I really printed a lot today. After our 2 test prints, I jumped straight into printing one of my own models. This prototype, I printed it in PLA and there's nothing to complain about, so let's try PTG. I went straight for a larger object. In case you were wondering what the heck that is, those are 3D printed shoe trees. Anyway, the print worked extremely well and looks really nice. I also sprayed the print plate with 3D Luck, because with a smooth print surface and very large PTG prints, you can actually damage your print plate, so please be prepared for that. I then printed a lot more with PTGs, big prints, small prints. Here you can see those prints and I think they look really good. Before we move on to TPU and polycarbonate, we need to quickly talk about one of the most important gadgets in 3D printing, a decent screwdriver. We have the Fantic E1 Max here. A modern pen-style screwdriver, especially if you do a lot of work around the house or on your 3D printer, the thing is brilliant. You get a large number of bits, everything is kept beautifully minimalistic and you can take it anywhere. It also charges with USB-C. You can really use it for everything. And especially for the fine detail work, it's super useful. The housing is made of aluminium and everything is high quality. I've personally been using this screwdriver for over a year now for everything. Especially when working on the 3D printer, it's great. I talked to Fantic and got a discount code for you. Just enter the code JoshuaE1Max on Amazon and get the screwdriver for an even lower price. First link in the description. So, a question that comes up with printer like these: can they print flexible materials like TPU? I actually only wanted to print an air slide and at first everything looked good. But then the print unfortunately went completely wrong. A camera would have been super helpful here because then I could have figured out exactly why the print failed. My theory is that I was too stingy with the support structures and our slide tipped over because of that. But the print actually looks good for TPU. However, I don't want to close this chapter just yet. I still had a roll of a very special TPU. Depending on how you print it, it should have different hardenesses. Anyway, I'm hoping that the function works better than the winding, because the winding is just so bad. I started with these 3 cubes just to figure out how I should print this material. I then printed a crock with it, which turned out pretty decent but has also a lot of weaknesses. Still good enough for a slipper and shows that the printer can handle TPU. After all the TPU, I just wanted something solid, so let's print with polycarbonate. This is definitely not a material for beginners, and I was curious how the printer would handle this. One thing to keep in mind first, you have this mechanism on the lid. When printing PLA, it should be open and for more complex materials always closed, so for polycarbonate we closed the latch. Then I just hit print and waited. The printer handled it just like PLA. It was really relaxed. I just needed 4 of these holders, all printed one after another without issues. The only thing I criticize is one slightly rough spot, but it's the same spot on all of them. That's a bit odd, but yeah. One thing that's always very important to me is the noise level. The Prusa Core 1 Plus scores again here, especially because with the fans you can print PLA with a closed door. Here you can hear a quick comparison, first with the door open, and second with the door closed. Still, I wouldn't put it in my bedroom or office, because it's still too loud for that and you couldn't concentrate. If you have an extra room it would be great, but otherwise please place it in the basement or somewhere else. The printer also have many features, but what are they and are they good? Build chamber temperature management. This sounds very fancy, but it's just a simple thing. The print starts automatically once the targeted indoor temperature is reached. So for example, when you print like polycarbonate, the indoor temperature should be like 50 degrees, and after the printer hit this temperature, the print begins. And other companies don't have this feature, and for me this feature is really nice and I hope other manufacturers will include it in their printers. We also have a door sensor. The print pauses when the door is open. Sounds simple, but it's really practical for schools or if you have a child or like pets. Furthermore, we have 2 filament sensors. This is really nice if you have a long print. The printer can be used completely without cloud, and I think that's very important for print farms, and this is one thing I found very annoying by other brands. For example, if you have an Eligo or Creality printer, you first need to register your printer, give your email, and I always think, do they steal my data? Why are they asking so many questions? One thing that's also a little bit annoying is that we don't have a nozzle wiper. Like every Chinese brand from Anycubic to Eligo has this tiny little thing where the nozzle can clean itself. The Prusa just makes a line and this is just not optimal. I think one of the most interesting parts is the comparison to the competition. And this gets complicated. If you only look at the features, you will be better served with a Creality K2 Pro, which is better in some areas and costs like $700 less. For that price difference, you can buy a Bambu Lab X2D2. Prusa is still better for makers. You can tinker with it yourself, and the maker community around it is just bigger. With a Bambu Lab, you simply can't do much, meaning you can't really upgrade your printer, which is completely fine for some people. If you just want to set up your printer, print things for like your house, then please buy a Bambu Lab machine. This will be a better machine for you. For like $500 to $600 you get an extremely well printer. If you enjoy printing your own spare parts, like to tinker, but also want a reliable device, Prusa is the right choice. There are no bad 3D printer right now, only the wrong printer for the wrong purpose. One thing I really praise in this segment, that there are always upgrade kits, even if they can be quite expensive depending on the upgrade. I'm convinced that if a Prusa Core 2 ever comes out, there will be an upgrade kit. Toolhead 3D printing is also a very exciting topic. We can upgrade a Prusa Core 1 with a $900 upgrade to an 8-head toolhead changer. That puts it ahead of the competition. A Snapmaker U1 only has 4 different toolheads, and with the Bambu Lab Vortex system you only get 6 nozzles. How this system performs, I can't say yet. There's still too little information available. By the way, if you would like a part 2 of this video where I buy the upgrade kit and print like more complex materials, I would really appreciate it if you like this video and leave a follow. Now we get to the hardest part, the conclusion. I spent a very long time on this and it's genuinely difficult for me. And honestly, the Prusa Core 1 is not a printer you can simply evaluate based on specs alone. Objectively, you get more features for less money from other brands. I especially have to emphasize the personal side. It's about that feeling that I personally had been missing in 3D printing. I last felt it strongly with the Eligo Neptune 2 or the Prusa Mini. And this printer managed to bring back this feeling. I can say if you just want to print and have no interest in tinkering with the printer, I strongly advise against it. Get a Bambu Lab or the Creality K2 Pro instead. But if you're interested in 3D printing in the long term, want to upgrade your printer down the line and want to support Europe, or more specific, don't want to support China, this printer could be for you. I hope someone in the comments who owns this printer put that feeling into words. I've linked the printer down below. Feel free to share your opinion in the comments. I will read through pretty much all of them and have a great day.